Hey everyone, Shad Dales here, and welcome into our latest TDR Cannabis in 5. And today I'm going to look at a topic that's been buzzing in both the medical and policy circles: cannabis versus prescription painkillers for chronic pain. And trust me, the data coming out right now is eye-opening. This is encouraging if you follow the cannabis space. We're talking about real numbers, real patients, and real shifts in how pain is being managed right now. So again, it's encouraging for cannabis, and it's long overdue that people understand at the federal level that yes, medical cannabis has medical benefits. So let's get into our latest TDR Cannabis in 5. All right, let's start in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Researchers at the University of Pittsburgh, they looked at two groups: 440 patients certified to use medical cannabis and over 8,000 patients prescribed traditional pain meds. And what they found is worth pausing on. Patients in the cannabis group were slightly more likely to report meaningful improvement in their pain compared to those on prescription meds. Yes, I say that loudly. And here's the kicker: patients who use both cannabis and opioids were more likely to cut down their opioid use over time. So that is a big deal because opioids have been the go-to for decades, but they come with risks that we all know too well. They include dependency, overdose, and diminishing effectiveness over time. So what were the odds and outcomes pertaining to this study? Well, the study concluded that medical marijuana was comparatively more effective than prescription meds for chronic pain. Yes, you heard that correctly. The odds of responding were 2.6 times higher in the cannabis group, with double the predicted probability of a positive response. Now, to keep it real, the researchers did note that at the 3-month mark, response rates were close: 34.9% for prescriptions versus 38.6% for cannabis. So the conservative read is this: cannabis is at least as effective as prescription meds, and in some cases, it may even outperform them. So as we dive into this more, but also zoom out, the Journal of the American Medical Association reported that nearly 1 in 3 chronic pain patients in the US use cannabis as an analgesic, and many of them are substituting cannabis for opioids altogether, according to the JAMA network. So that substitution trend is huge. Population-level studies show states with medical cannabis programs often see lower opioid overdose mortality rates compared to states without them. So another reason the federal government needs to modernize these laws. Now, before we dive into more data that's promising, now a quick word from Morgan & Morgan. There's a reason smart investors celebrate when their portfolio jumps 40% in a year, just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. Think about it. When you're investing, you want the right team in your corner. The same is true if you're injured in dealing with an insurance company, and that is where Morgan & Morgan comes into the equation. Why? Well, they've got more than 1,000 attorneys in over 100 offices nationwide, and they've been fighting for people for over 35 years, and their track record is hard to ignore. Case in point, in Florida, a client was offered $350,000 but walked away with $12 million. So in total, Morgan & Morgan, they've recovered more than $25 billion for over 500,000 clients. Because if you're injured due to someone else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. Not all law firms are created equal, but with Morgan & Morgan, their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim right now by clicking the link in the description below or by scanning this QR code on your screen with your phone. At the end of the day, if you want what you deserve, make sure you go in with the right team by contacting Morgan & Morgan today. All right, so let's get back to it. So now I'm looking at this data even more. It gets even more interesting. The 2024 systematic review published in BMJ Open compared cannabis and opioid across randomized clinical trials. So what was the takeaway in all this? Cannabis again showed comparable or better outcomes for chronic non-cancer pain with fewer long-term risks. So if you think about that, opioids are still widely prescribed, but the evidence for their long-term effectiveness, it's shaky. Cannabis, meanwhile, is showing huge promise, not just as an alternative, but as a safer adjunct therapy. So you can understand the outcry in the cannabis industry as to why we still think it's absolutely asinine that it's classified as a Schedule 1 drug. Also, in case if you didn't notice, chronic pain right now affects over 100 million Americans and costs the U.S. economy an estimated, get this, ready, $635 billion annually. So that's not just a health issue, it's a financial one. If cannabis can deliver relief while reducing reliance on opioids, we're talking about a potential shift in both healthcare and outcomes and economic impact. So you can see why Big Pharma is definitely definitely paying attention to this space right now. They don't want to lose that revenue, but the truth shall set you free, and it's getting louder and louder. But let's also be clear, cannabis, it isn't the silver bullet. The data does show variability, and not every patient responds the same way. That's important. But the optics, again, they're powerful. Cannabis indeed is moving from being seen as a fringe option to now being recognized as a legitimate medical tool. And it's happening in a lot of countries, Canada, Europe, Australia, you name it. It's growing everywhere. And we've definitely crossed that line of the point of no return. In Congress, you better get on this train, because this baby is not coming back anytime soon. And why do I say that? Because voter approval. Right now we have lots of data, and they better start paying attention, because the numbers don't lie and voters count. And the conversation is only getting louder. So these lawmakers, they can't keep turning their head on this, because voters do count and they want votes. Because really, when we look at the data, it sounds promising. But beyond the data, we also have some real stories that count, because patient stories, they do matter. Surveys show that patients often report better symptom management and fewer side effects with cannabis compared to prescription meds. Nobody wants pills in 2025. So that's the quality of life, being able to sleep, move, and really function without fog or risks tied to opioids. And the addiction level as well. Like, how many people are killed every single day in the US off of opioid addiction? So in closing, here's the big picture. The optics say cannabis is definitely trendy, the new wave painkiller. But the substance, meaning the receipts, it shows it's at least as effective as prescription meds, with the added upside of helping patients cut back on opioids. So for policymakers, doctors, and patients, that's a narrative worth paying attention to, especially when it costs $635 billion to the American health system every single year. You think that's worth paying attention to? Because it's another reminder that the cannabis conversation isn't just cultural, it's clinic, it's economic, and it's personal. All right, that's it for today's latest episode. You found this breakdown helpful? Make sure to hit that like button, smash on that bell for all notifications, and if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe with us here at TDR. And leave your comments below. What did you think of this study? Did you get a chance to review it and some of the data that came out? Do you believe in this? Do you feel encouraged about the future of cannabis? Does Big Pharma eventually have to stop ignoring this space? Because, as I said before, it's economic, it's healthcare, and it's definitely personal for many people across the US, and the data doesn't lie. That's it for now. Like I always say, stay open-minded, stay connected, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Take care, everyone.